Knighthood. Knighthood is a rank and honor given to warriors who perform exemplary service for a lord or the realm in the Seven Kingdoms. Its members are known as knights and use the title Ser, though this may be superseded by other titles such as lord, prince or king. Knights are religiously influenced by a code of chivalry and honor. This code states that knights must defend the weak and the innocent, must protect women and children, must fight fairly and honorably, and obey their lieges. How closely a knight follows this code varies immensely from individual to individual. It is difficult to obey one law while trying to uphold the other. A knight is a member of a warrior tradition that is heavily interwoven in the feudal culture of the Seven Kingdoms and the faith of the Seven. Knights occupy a social standing between that of lords and small folk. In contrast to nobility, this rank is not hereditary. Knights are referred to with the title Ser. History and ties to the faith of the Seven. Knighthood likely has its roots in Undul culture due to its association with the faith of the Seven, which was brought to Westeros with the coming of the Unduls. Legends of the Reach claim chivalry was brought by the first knight, John the Oak, however. The military success of mounted knights and their steel armament proved vital to the Unduls' conquest of most of Westeros. Knighthood holds less cultural significance in areas of Westeros that are less assimilated to Undul culture, such as the North and the Iron Islands, though there are knights from these regions. Knighthood originated in Undul culture, and was introduced to Westeros during the Undul invasion 6,000 years ago. As a result of this, knighthood is intimately tied to the faith of the Seven, and the ideal of knighthood is to be not only an honorable warrior but a devout follower of the Seven. And with any knight, honorable conduct and level of piety varies from person to person. The faith of the Seven is the dominant religion in all but two of the kingdoms, the North, whose inhabitants still worship the old gods of the forest, and the Iron Islands, who follow a local deity called the Drowned God. The institution of knighthood is therefore not heavily practiced in these two regions, and very few Northerners or Ironborn ever choose to become knights, even if they are renowned warriors. For example, Eddard Stark himself was not a knight, because he proudly continued to worship the old gods of his ancestors, yet he was still a great warrior. Sometimes, however, a soldier who does not follow the faith of the Seven may nonetheless be rewarded for exemplary service with the title of knighthood by a lord who does worship the Seven. Examples are Ser Roderick Castle and Ser Jorah Mormont, both of the North. Because it is tied to the faith of the Seven, knighthood does not exist in other cultures outside of the Seven Kingdoms, either among the wildlings beyond the Wall, nor across the Narrow Sea and other continents such as Essos, though of course, a knight from the Seven Kingdoms may travel to the Free Cities. Social status. Any man can be knighted, no matter their birth. Social pressure keeps knighthood from being exploited by unscrupulous knights who might give the accolade for money. Knighthood is seen as primarily a martial position, so even the sons of powerful lords are not necessarily knighted if they are incapable of fulfilling the requirements. Doing otherwise would lose honor rather than gain it, and would make a lord and his family be held up to ridicule. Regardless, at times, a lord's son is knighted without fulfilling the requirements. For example, Lord Caswell of Bitterbridge had his only son and heir, a weakling, knighted. Further, a young knight's repute partially derives from the honor of the man who conferred knighthood on him. Receiving your knighthood from a king, prince, Kingsguard knight, or legendary knight holds great prestige. Although lords hold certain legal rights, example, the right of pit and gallows, which knights do not have, and outrank knights at tourneys and feasts, certain landed knights can be lord in all but name. It is mostly the title which sets the two apart, as the title of lord is generally considered to be more prestigious than the title Ser. However, the title of a knight has its own prestige, as it cannot be inherited. And although knights are often ranked below lords, certain landed knights might actually be more powerful than lesser lords. It is certainly possible that a landed knight has more lands and wealth than a small lord. Especially landed knights who come from ancient houses, and who have extensive lands and a large, strong castle may actually be more powerful than many smaller lordlings. Such a peculiar status is often reflected by taking a style that incorporates the name of their castle, such as the Knight of 9 Stars. Lordly houses can be reduced to landed knights as punishment from the crown. The Conningtons, originally a lordly house, were reduced to landed knights by King Robert I Baratheon as a punishment for Lord John Connington's participation in Robert's rebellion on the side of House Targaryen. Instead of being the Lord of Griffin's Roost, the head of House Connington is now known as the Knight of Griffin's Roost. Knighthood can also be stripped from individuals, through attainder or royal decree. The warriors' sons were a military order of knights who gave up worldly possessions and swore their service to the High Septon. They were outlawed during the Faith Militant Uprising, however. According to Ser Jaime Lannister, 300 dragons is a fair ransom for a knight from a noble house. Appearance. Armor worn by Westerosi knights and warriors does not correspond one-to-one with any single period in European history, according to George R.R. Martin. Instead, it corresponds a mix of armor styles from several different time periods. Armor tends to later styles in southern Westeros. For example, plate is more common in the Reach, while mail is more the rule in the north. The armor used by free folk living beyond the wall is rather primitive. Knights can wear several different kinds of helmets. The half-helms correspond to classic Norman helms from the Hastings era, conical helmets with open faces and a nasal bar. Other types of helmets are great helms, both visored and closed, and elaborately shaped helms, such as the ornate lion helmet worn by Jaime Lannister. Earning knighthood is also called earning spurs. Wealthier knights can wear gilded spurs. Knights display a coat of arms on their shield and surcoat to identify themselves. Those who are nobly born often wear the arms of their house. Some might choose to use variations of their house's sigil, however. Examples are Garland and Loras Tyrell, who use 2 and 3 golden roses instead of 1 to indicate their positions are second and third son. A knight can also choose a completely new coat of arms. Many knights wear large crests on their helms that embellish the theme of their arms, such as a black trout for Ser Brynden Tully and a unicorn horn for Ser Flemont Brax. At the time of the tourney at Ashford Meadow in 209 AC, a plain yet complete set of good steel armor with greaves, gorget, and great helm could cost 800 stags, which equals almost 4 golden dragons. Becoming a knight. Pages and squires. Although not an absolute requirement for becoming a knight, boys, often nobly born, can serve as pages and later squires. Boys can become pages at several different ages. It appears to be normal to become a page from the ages of 6 or 7 onwards. Robert Arryn was 6 years old when his father, Lord John Arryn, planned on having him fostered at Dragonstone and serving as a page, although circumstances were not entirely ordinary. According to Brienne of Tarth, boys near the age of 6 or 7 are pages. Edric Dane became a page at the age of 7, and the Princess of Dorne suggested taking on Jaime Lannister as a page at that age as well. Kevin Lannister was made a page at the age of 8. Boys as young as 8 might serve the Night's Watch as pages. After several years of serving as a page, a boy can become a squire. Boys are not required to serve as a page before becoming a squire, so the age of squiring can range widely. While Samwell Tarly was supposed to become a page and cupbearer at the age of 10, multiple boys are known to have been squires by that age or by an even younger age. Examples include Doran Martell, Aegon V. Targaryen, Rollin Westerling, and Elmar Frey, who were all already squires at the age of 9, and Barristan Selmy and Edric Dane were made squires at the age of 10. Pages and squires train at arms. Squires run errands for their masters, tend to their master's animals, clean his mail, and help him into his armor whenever required. In times of war, they ride beside their masters, assisting them and fighting by their sides. During tourneys, squires will provide their masters with new lances, or with a sword. A boy who is being fostered but who is not training for knighthood, example, because he does not follow the faith of the Seven, can perform the duties of a page and squire without strictly being one. Becoming a knight. Typically, young men must undergo many years of extensive and expensive training to become a knight. A young knight in training is known as a squire. Pursuing a knighthood is one of the few ways for a member of the small folk to achieve rank and standing amongst the nobility. However, such a task usually involves the expenditure of significant sums of money on armor and weaponry, which puts it out of the reach of most commoners. The rank of knighthood is not hereditary, and thus a knight's sons must go through the whole process of becoming knights themselves. Of course, a commoner who has been knighted will have greater opportunity to gain the wealth needed to put his sons through training as knights. It is not unheard of, however, for commoners to be knighted after significantly distinguishing themselves in combat. This skips the typically large costs of training to be a knight, though it happens more often in wartime. During Robert's Rebellion, Stannis Baratheon knighted Davos Seaworth as a reward for saving his castle garrison at the Siege of Storm's End, albeit this was a rare case in which Davos's bravery was not in combat, but in running the blockade around the castle to bring food to the starving garrison. Even a common sellsword that has fought valiantly in combat may be rewarded by being dubbed a knight, though this occurs infrequently. For example, Ser Bronn of the Blackwater was knighted after the Battle of the Blackwater for the vital role he played in setting the wildfire trap which destroyed much of the attacking enemy fleet. Types of knights. In theory, all knights hold an equal rank, but in practice knights who own their own lands or who serve major lords are much more highly respected than a landless commoner who happened to be knighted after fighting valiantly in a battle. It is also seen as more prestigious to be knighted by a king, a major lord, a kingsguard, or another highly respected knight. Any knight can theoretically make another man a knight if he is willing to say the vows, though respectable knights would not hand out the title lightly. A sellsword might get knighted for fighting well in a battle, and he might dishonorably knight all of his drinking companions who did nothing to earn it. They would technically hold the title of knight, but no one would take their title seriously due to the low prestige of how they became knighted. Most often, young men who have finished their training and just recently been knighted are landless and not in the service of any lord. There are 3 stages of service that knights hope to work their way up through. Hedge knights are typically commoners who have risen to knighthood. They have no fixed abode and wander the 7 kingdoms looking for a cause to fight for. They are disparagingly called hedge knights because it is said that they are so poor that they just sleep under hedges by the side of the road as they wander from one prospective employer to the next. They frequently travel around to different tournaments to show off their prowess, in the hope that a lord in attendance will then hire them. Many lords do use tournaments as recruiting grounds, though how well an individual hedge knight performs in the tournament is up to him. Many consider hedge knights to be not much better than sellswords. Sworn swords are knights sworn to a particular lord. Sometimes this is permanent, but mainly it is temporary, with hedge knights joining a lord for a particular purpose and then being released from his service afterwards. Landed knights are knights who have been rewarded for their service by a lord with land, typically a small holding, large farm or small manor with servants. They form the minor nobility of the 7 kingdoms. Successful landed knights who expand their holdings or continue to perform exemplary service for their liege may be raised to the rank of lord in time, gaining the right to dispense justice on his lands, including executions, without consulting a higher lord. Practices. In wartime, mounted knights form the backbone of major armies in southern Westeros. The skill of each knight varies, but they are typically elite professional soldiers, with extensive combat training, and often equipped with the finest arms and armor available to them. Even dismounted, a single knight is considered to be worth several dozen men-at-arms, who are forced to serve and are often poorly trained and equipped. Knights are very useful for carving through and running down enemy infantry, though they are also the best weapon against the enemy army's own mounted knights. Personal combat aside, knights also serve as officers to whomever side they serve. In peacetime, knights prove their martial valor through training soldiers as the master-at-arms in the holdfasts they serve in. Others choose to prove it by participating in contests of skill known as tournaments, although knighthood is not always a formal requirement for participation in a tournament. The highlight of tournaments is the joust, in which mounted knights charge at each other, each knight trying to knock the other off of his horse using a wooden lance. Knights at tournaments frequently fight to win the favor of nobles and potential spouses if they prove victorious. While some knights do fight for such romantic reasons, others may be more interested in the large sums of prize money awarded to the winners, often numbering in hundreds or thousands in gold dragons. Others fight at tournaments to win general social prestige, or for the excitement of victory, though a few, such as Ser Gregor Clegane, fight simply to indulge in violence. Knights often formally swear fealty to lords by exchanging formulaic vows. In one commonly used formula, the knight kneels before a lord in supplication while holding up his sword in offering, and they give the following exchange. Knight, I offer my services, Lord's name. I will shield your back and keep your counsel and give my life for yours if need be. I swear it by the old gods and the new. Lord, and I vow that you shall always have a place by my hearth and meat at my table. And I pledge to ask no service of you that might bring you dishonor. I swear it by the old gods and the new. Arise. Men who have been knighted, even those not originally from noble houses, gain the legal right to display their own personal heraldry. Since the Targaryen conquest 300 years before the War of the Five Kings, the 7-man royal bodyguard known as the Kingsguard have been considered to be the pinnacle of knighthood. In theory, the Kingsguard are the elite of the elite, more skilled at combat and more honorable and virtuous than any other knights in the entire realm. At times, this ideal has been matched in great and honorable knights such as the legendary Ser Barristan Selmy. Other times, Kingsguard members have been skilled warriors but behaved controversially, such as Ser Jaime Lannister. In the worst occasions, some Kingsguard members were appointed simply as political favors, and are neither honorable nor particularly talented fighters, such as Ser Meryn Trant. Fighting style. Mounted Westerosi knights on heavy horse typically charge enemy infantry formations using war lances. Cavalry charges can devastatingly kill a large number of infantry drastically out of proportion to the number of cavalry present. On foot, the fighting style of Westerosi knights consists of powerful slashing attacks and strong blocks using a heavy sword, alternating with quick thrusting attacks meant to penetrate armor. Westerosi knights wear heavy plate armor which provides them excellent protection, particularly against the crude weapons of basic infantry conscripts, albeit at the cost of making their movements relatively slow. The weight of their armor slows them down enough that they cannot rely on speed to win against unarmored opponents, though the armor will keep them alive longer than their opponent. Thus knights must rely on the raw power of blows from heavy swords, designed to deal damage not only due to their sharpness, but their sheer weight. Broad hacking and slashing movements are not merely dramatic, but combined with the raw weight of the sword, will drastically increase the force behind the impact of the blow. A lightly armed and armored opponent may hit a knight multiple times, but for little damage. Conversely, it may take a knight some time to pin down an unarmored opponent, but once he does, his blow will be absolutely devastating. The agility of a knight also depends highly on its wearer, as veteran fighters are often seen to be moderately unrestricted by their armor. The greatest threat to armored knights is actually other armored knights, and their weapon design and fighting style evolved to reflect this. The best way to penetrate through plate armor is with a thrusting attack using a long, heavy sword. A curved blade could not apply as much pressure on a single point, and a thinner blade would snap under so much pressure. For comparison, the Dothraki Arak sword is meant to be used by light cavalry while running down unarmored infantry, thus the blade has a curved design to provide greater reach in slashing attacks, which can be made very rapidly because the blade itself is light and thin. The Arak was not designed to punch through plate armor, however, and at this task it pales in comparison to a knight's straight and heavy longsword. Thrusting attacks are best at actually penetrating armor, but the sheer force behind a powerful slashing attack is often still quite useful against even an armored opponent, as the force of the blow may stun him, possibly dent his armor, and sometimes outright cleave through weaker plate armor. Sometimes penetrating a high-quality suit of armor is almost impossible, even with strong thrusts. In this case, impact weapons such as warhammers or maces are good at delivering powerful blows that can crush bones without actually having to penetrate the armor. By far, the best way of dealing with an armored opponent is to simply attack the areas in which there is little or no armor. Because combat between Westerosi knights is not quite as fast as Dothraki-wielding Araks, or the water dance fighting style of the Free Cities which uses light rapiers, it values not only quick reflexes but strategy. Instead of rapid attacks meant to land a blow before the opponent can react, a Westerosi knight must often engage in an elaborate series of feints, trying to gradually lure the opposing knight into overcommitting his defense to one side, then landing a devastating attack on the other side. Nonetheless, speed is still very much a factor in combat between knights, and the knight who is both physically and mentally faster will emerge victorious. No one fighting style is universally superior to another, simply better suited to different purposes, and the skill of the individual is often the ultimate deciding factor in combat. For example, equipped with plate armor and a heavy sword, Ser Jorah Mormont was able to defeat Kotho the Dothraki Bloodrider, who was unarmored and wielding an Arak. Kotho did manage to land a strike against Jorah's side, but his armor absorbed the blow, as a slashing attack from a thin blade cannot penetrate plate armor. Jorah then used his arm to pin the Arak against his side, and proceeded to land a killing blow with his own sword. Similarly, Ser Marantrant was able to defeat the much more skilled fighter Syrio Farrell, because his armor provided him complete protection from all the blows the famed First Sword of Braavos managed to land with his lead-filled wooden sword. This was in contrast to the fates of several Lannister men-at-arms who have tried conclusion with Syrio moments earlier, and had their jaws and knees effortlessly broken because they had no armor over these body parts. Conversely, the Sellsword Bronn eschewed heavy armor when fighting in a trial by combat against Ser Vardis. Unlike Kotho, Bronn did not attempt to immediately land a strike on his opponent, but focused on dodging and avoiding Vardis' attacks until the knight tired himself out, at which point Bronn moved in for a quick incapacitating strike. In the books. In the A Song of Ice and Fire novels, knighthood is an institution that came with the Undulls when they invaded Westeros some 6,000 years ago. Knights wore armor, derived from iron, and rode horses into battle, using massed formation charges and lances to shatter enemy armies. The devastating effectiveness of this tactic permitted the Undulls to conquer most of Westeros. This tactic was later adopted by others, so the cavalry of the north uses much the same weapons, armor and tactics as knights, but are not called knights due to their devotion to another god. In practice, there is little difference between knights and northern heavy cavalry. There are several types of knight. Hedge knights are typically commoners who have risen to knighthood. They have no fixed abode and wander the Seven Kingdoms looking for a cause to fight for. They are called hedge knights because it is said that they are so poor that they just sleep under hedges by the side of the road as they wander from one job to the next. Sometimes these knights turn to thievery out of necessity and become known as robber knights. Thus it is said that hedge and robber knights are two faces of the same coin. Sworn swords are knights sworn to a particular lord. Sometimes this is permanent, but mainly it is temporary, with hedge knights joining a lord for a particular purpose and then being released from his service afterwards. Landed knights are knights who have been rewarded for their service by a lord with land, typically a small holding, large farm or small manor with servants. They form the minor nobility of the Seven Kingdoms. Successful landed knights who expand their holdings or continue to perform exemplary service for their liege may be raised to the rank of lord in time, leading a major noble house. Most knights pass through 3 stages to achieve the rank. They start as pages, young boys who perform menial tasks for their lieges. Pages are not expected to fight in battle, but some do regardless. They are given lessons in riding and weapons in return. Upon reaching adolescence, pages become squires. Their training intensifies, and they are taught the full comportment and responsibilities of knighthood. Squires are expected to fight in battle and carry themselves as knights at all times, even though they have not achieved the rank yet. They finally become full knights after they have proven themselves. In theory, any knight can make another man a knight, though in practice it is considered more prestigious to be famous and respected knights, particularly those actually commanding a campaign. The highest honor is to be knighted by one of the Kingsguard. There have been times when landless hedge knights of no merit dubbed dozens of their followers as knights simply as a favor, but this is considered an extremely disreputable practice. The comparison that George R.R. Martin has used is that being knighted is similar to being a college graduate. Exactly how prestigious your degree is depends on where you received it. Technically, a student at Harvard or Oxford and a student at a local community college are both college graduates, but there is a drastic difference between the two. Analogously, it is more prestigious to be knighted by the Kingsguard or a famous and revered knight, while a peasant knighted by a hedge knight of no fame would be scoffed at as not being a real knight at all. Thus the full course for a prospective knight is, page of squire, hedge knight, sworn sword, landed knight. A man does not necessarily have to go through the first 2 steps to become a knight. If a commoner has significantly distinguished himself in combat, a knight may choose to elevate him to knighthood. Even a sellsword that has fought valiantly in combat may be rewarded by being dubbed a knight, though this is uncommon. Further, a soldier who is rewarded by a lord for valorous service by being dubbed a knight might instantly be taken on by that lord as a sworn sword within his own household, skipping the hedge knight step. Further, while rare, it is not unheard of for a lord to reward a common soldier not only by dubbing him a knight, but by at the same time giving him lands, instantly elevating him from a simple soldier to a landed knight and member of the minor nobility, skipping the steps of hedge knight or sworn sword entirely. This was the case with Ser Davos Seaworth, who was a common low-born smuggler, but performed such valorous service running the blockade around Storm's End to bring food to the besieged castle's starving garrison, that Stannis Baratheon rewarded him by not only knighting him but giving him lands to rule. Becoming a knight requires the applicant to swear an oath of allegiance and fealty to the Seven and to stand vigil in a sept for a night. These tasks need not be performed consecutively. It is not uncommon in times of war for a newly made knight to not stand his vigil for weeks or months. There is no formal bar against women becoming knights, only that it is simply not done. There is no official rule against women becoming knights, because it makes as much sense in their culture as making an official rule forbidding pigs to fly. It is absurd and simply impossible for a woman to be a knight. While rare, female warriors have served as pages and squires. Spelling and pronunciation. Ser is not a typo. The title for knights within the fictional universe of the A Song of Ice and Fire book series is spelled Ser with an E, not as Sir with an I as in real life. This is just a quirk of their culture. In A Feast for Crows, however, it is once misspelled as Sir. In the Italian medieval world, Ser, a contraction of Messer, was a form of address for a gentleman. It is cognate to Sir, the word Messer being derived from Old Occitan Meser, meaning my Sir. According to the TV series official pronunciation guide developed for the cast and crew, Ser is pronounced Sair. Actors usually say it very fast or slur it so it sounds very similar to the standard Sir, but this is not the case. That is, actor Sean Bean isn't saying Sir with a received pronunciation accent so it sounds like Sair. The correct pronunciation of Ser actually is Sair. Writer Brian Cogman clarified that some pronunciations would differ due to the accents and languages of the speaker, Ser in particular. If you want to support me, check out my Patreon at https://www.patreon.com/Kayashin. I tend to polls that decide important plot stuff in my P at Trian. Many thanks to my awesome patrons. Ben Phillips.
If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.